Hello and welcome back to the Football Analyst. So today we'll be looking at the Champions League game between Manchester City and Bayern Munich, particularly how both teams played against each other's press. It was quite a free-flowing, open game, and there were a few tweaks here and there from both Tuchel and Pep Guardiola that were interesting to watch. So firstly, we'll take a look at City in possession. So starting from the back third. So as we can see, they're really playing with a back three with Ruben Dias as the central centre back and having John Stones, who started at right back, drift into a second pivot position with Rodri, and Kanji going out wide to right back. What I thought was interesting was that Ederson seemed to be playing on either side of Dias as like a pseudo second centre back that they could play in between. So it was really a 4-2-4-1 formation with Gundogan and KDB staying high with the wingers, and then Erling Haaland at striker, splitting their Bayern centre backs. Now, as we look, Stones in the double pivot position, and Ederson operating as a CB, it allowed them to have a pretty decent, 5v5 in midfield with Erling Haaland, who would come up and receive. Along with Bayern, their wingers stayed pretty narrow, so you'd have, Koeman and Sane come in to try and negate any ball into these pivots, and then Musiala also ready to press on either, Ederson or Dias, and also trying to protect this area. And of course, you'd have the 1v1s with Kimmich and Goretzka. So as we take a look, this is really the shape. If you can imagine Koeman out wide here, with Ederson, really looking like a centre back in a goalkeeper's clothing, really. You've got a Kanji and Ake out wide, Stones in the middle. Diaz's position next to Ederson, brings the pivots in Stones and Rodri up, which subsequently dragged the Bayern front four press very high. So the front four players were dragged very high left space in midfield for long opportunities for Ederson to play to either wing. As we can see in this, these images, Bayern's front four are very high, and it opens up the long opportunity for Ederson, who can play straight into Grealish's feet, as Goretzka is tied up with Gundogan. So it created a lot of space behind those CDMs of Bayern. Another way they were able to play out was Rodri or Stones would drop back into the back line with Haaland pushing into the midfield. This meant that Stones held a pocket in the middle here and kept the Bayern wingers narrow, which also opened up space for the fullbacks to be used going forward and to receive in midfield. As we can see, Rodri is in position here. Sometimes it would be Stones, sometimes it would be Rodri, creating the back four with Stones in the middle. You can see how narrow the Bayern defenders are. KDB is sort of drifting out there. He's chosen to play, across to Ake. The ball gets played down the wing for Gundogan, who has drifted wide. We can see Haaland has come up to occupy Goretzka, and Rodri has drifted from his centre-back position back into midfield and has gone through relatively unmarked because Goretzka's had to deal with Haaland. And as we can see, Gundogan receives and he's able to come back into the middle, and Rodri is free and they're able to play through the press. In the midfield, once they got into midfield, City were able to utilise their attacking midfielders to create space behind Bayern's front four, and had a 5v4 when playing from the back. So, KDB really pushed up high, and so did Gundogan, dragging the central defensive midfielders with them, and enabled City to have a 4v5 here. So you've got the three centre halves with the two pivots against the four Bayern attackers. And this created pockets. We can see that Musiala has gone to press Ake. He's passed across to Dias, and therefore Gnabry has gone to press Dias and has left Stones pretty much unmarked because Sane is looking to press up on Akanji. And this has meant that a ball's able to be played into stones, but it's also created a bit of a paddock here that Haaland can receive into as well. Kimmich has tried to come to, cut that off, but he's too late. He's been trying to guard Gundogan, who's gone up high, and also the same with Goretzka on KDB up top as well. So Haaland can really play to either direction here. And he's chosen to go up to KDB, and they're able to work it forward up on the wing there. Another way they're able to play through midfield was when the ball was wide, there were opportunities for City to switch or play long balls over the top. With Erling Haaland dropping into midfield, it dragged Upamecano up. He tended to follow him pretty much all night, creating space for either Gundogan or in this case Jack Grealish as the ball's over at right back. They were able to move forward and attack these areas, as Pavard was really trying to defend both. Kanji spotted this. You can see Gundogan making a run. Haaland has moved up, dragging Upamecano with him. And there's really no coverage. If the ball had been played a bit better, because I think in this situation Pavard picks the ball up, as there's the ball there, it doesn't quite carry to Grealish. He really could have played Grealish in, or even Gundogan more directly. They would have been through on goal. So that happened a few times during the game. They're able to switch it out to this side, and then Bernardo Silva out on this side. So that was quite fruitful for Manchester City. Once they move forward into higher areas, they set up in it's supposed to be a 3-2-5. So that's meant to be a 3-2-5 with Bayern. Bayern really maintain their 4-2-3-1 shape pretty much throughout the night on the defensive side of the ball. City would push their numbers wide, and this opened up opportunities to switch the ball over to Grealish or just put crosses into the back post. As a lot of their midfielders that had dropped back were tied up in this area. It created very thin coverage. There's 1v1s potentially on offer here at the back post. And as we can see, KDB's gone across, Bernardo Silva has also gone across. And this is off a quick play, so Bayern's defensive midfielders haven't got back to clog this space up. De Ligt had to go across to guard Silva, and as Davies has gone to stop De Bruyne, and he's able to play a good ball into Haaland, who's made the run into that space as the centre-backs are split. They were very clever with this, because as those players would push across, these players would stay very wide and it would split the centre-backs. This happened a few times where they were able to split the CBs of Bayern and have lots of space in the middle of them. So as that ball's played through, Haaland's able to collect, and he doesn't see Grealish, but you can see the space he's got on offer here. Same with Ake, who could come in and use this space. Rodri's even got space because Bayern have panicked and they've tried to clog this area. Rodri's got space. A quick cross on his left foot. Haaland's left-footed. He could easily have hit Grealish at the back post there. This is the Rodri goal, so this is another example. You notice the front five of City, so we've got, I think that's KDB up there, Grealish, Haaland have kept their width over that side, and then City have brought players over this side, so there's a big gap where no City players are, and it's dragged Bayern's players out of position. So as we can see, Gnabry's actually been on here, he tracked back, and then he's just left Rodri pretty much by himself, and has expected Musiala to come through and guard and pick Rodri up, really. So that's quite lazy. If I was Tuchel, I'd be very disappointed with that. That's a lapse in judgment and awareness, and has led directly to the Rodri goal. So, Bernardo Silva's seen him free. There's a big space between the centre-backs, which he could have crossed the ball into for Haaland to attack even. But he's played to Rodri. Rodri's beaten Musiala, who's come from up high, and all Rodri had to do really was step around him, and he's got all this space left to fire a shot into the top corner. Now for Bayern in possession, they generally faced a City press of a 4-4-2. So City pressed with a 4-4-2, and Bayern really kept their 4-2-3-1 shape in possession as well. They didn't really change too much. Generally played 4-2-3-1. Sometimes Kimmich would drop in. Sometimes, Davies and Pavard would go very high, but generally 4-2-3-1. But with City's 4-4-2 press, and with Stones reverting back to his centre-back position, they were susceptible to balls into midfield. As you can see the space here, they pressed pretty high at some stages. So there was a lot of space for the keeper or centre-backs to play balls over the top to the fullbacks who would press high stages, and also the wingers, and Musiala and Gnabry in the middle as well. So this happened a few times. We can see City's 4-4-2 press. Not quite in a really high position, but they've generally pressed up a lot. There's a lot of space back here, and there would be back here as well for wingers to receive. But as you can see, the ball is played back to Sommer, and they've pressed up in response to this, and it's created a lot of space at the back. You can see Grealish has realised this, but it's a bit too late, as Pavard has pretty much blown past him, has received the ball on acres of space here, and away they go. Bayern are off and running into forward areas. Bayern, as they progress the ball up a bit further, they sometimes opted to have Kimmich form a back three and play out with Goretzka as the central pivot, with Gnabry and Musiala, floating around into midfield. City's centre-backs didn't follow them. They generally stayed deep, which allowed these two players, Musiala and Gnabry, to receive balls into pockets, into half spaces. And that really hurt City in midfield. Bayern were able to progress the ball pretty easily through the midfield. If it wasn't for a few mistakes in the back line, Bayern were pretty much moving the ball from one end to the other relatively easily. But as we can see in this clip, Kimmich has moved back to form a back three. Davies has gone high with Pavard, and they pretty much can walk the ball forward with this back three, because it's a 2v3. They've got a 4v3 here with Musiala coming up. They're just able really to waltz the ball up the field. As you can see, a simple pass across to Upamecano, and they can move the ball with Gnabry also joining midfield. So they've really got a potentially a 6v4 with Bernardo Silva and might be Sane or Coman out here with Davies as well. So lots of numbers through midfield helped their progression. Another option they could use was when Kimmich was in central midfield, just because Gnabry and Musiala would come forward. It just enabled more options to pass. There was too many players in here for Rodri and Gundogan to cover. With Bernardo Silva worried about Davies and Grealish out with Pavard, and these two trying to press these three, it was just too much for City to handle. And they really had, sometimes two extra players in this area of the field. Further up the pitch, Bayern's fullbacks press really high. They push really high on offense. That stretched City's midfield four and had Musiala, like I said, drift into midfield. And along with Kimmich, this created a 6v4. So when Kimmich wasn't in the back three and he moved into midfield, they really had six players here with Gnabry floating forward against really only four City players, because KDB was sort of playing as a pseudo striker. As a centre forward, he wasn't really tracking back into midfield. So at times they had a 4v6, and that's really what helped their ball movement. And City's back line tried to stay more conservative. As we can see, KDB and Haaland have been up really high. Rodri's worried about Musiala drifting across, as Gundogan's worried about Gnabry getting the ball as well, as they've gone up high. And Grealish is trying to protect a pass across from Pavard and also a pass into Sane. And, Bernardo Silva's really stuck trying to defend three players. He's got the press on De Ligt. He's looking after Goretzka and Davies. And it was just too much for him, and they were able to find a pass into Goretzka, and along they go with Goretzka and Davies, and they really pushed forward after that down the wing. Another option, as you can see, Haaland's been on Upamecano, De Bruyne's been looking after Kimmich, and as you can see, they've really got two options here. Upamecano's gone to play to Goretzka, but he could have played to Musiala. Davies, you can see his head down there. Yeah, that could have been a switch option, because Gnabry's come forward, has pushed the CDMs across, and it's allowed this space because the City centre-backs haven't stepped up. Just due to the pace, really, of Bayern. They didn't want to go too high, just due to the pace, which is probably not a bad idea. And then again in these positions in the middle and half spaces, they were available all night really for Gnabry, Musiala, any other centre mids that would roll through there. Just due to the wealth of numbers that they were able to put in the midfield, it was really easy for them to find these spaces. In wider areas, City could be caught too narrow. They would move their numbers across to try and protect against the volume of Bayern players that would come across, and up, with Gnabry and Musiala coming high, would cause everything to come across to help support. Bayern could really find the switch options across. They hit Coman and Sane on the wings very often, as well as Pavard and Davies when they moved up. As we can see in this image, a lot of City players have come across to protect the Bayern forwards and also the wing play, and Kimmich has just received a quick pass across and he's able to hit Coman pretty much wide open, acres of space. And as you can see, Pavard is making the run, and this is a really dangerous attack. You can see Pavard receives the ball, puts a cross in that gets deflected and almost chips Ederson, but they've got pretty much 3 1v1s, 4 1v1s, 5 1v1s if you count all the players here. So it's a very dangerous position for Bayern. Generally, once Bayern really progressed the ball forward, City morphed into a 6-2-2 shape. Silva would come back to help out, as well as Grealish. The fullbacks would tuck in with Stones and Diaz in the middle, and then Rodri and Gundogan would be the pivots, and they would stay quite deep. And this allowed a lot of space for Kimmich and Goretzka really to roam midfield at the edge of the box, because KDB and Haaland would stay high. This also meant that there was a lot of space to even cut into. Sane had a lot of shots from outside the box because there was a lot of space for them to drift into. As we can see from this position, Coman's got the ball on the wing. He's had Davies overlap, which has sort of got them occupied with the wide areas. You can see Gundogan and Rodri have come very deep, and it's allowed Sane there and Kimmich to just operate in that area. And they both of these players had some shots from outside the box that were very quality looks from distance under no pressure really. But that was ultimately what I think won City the game, was their tight back third defence. Apart from Upamecano's mistakes and Sommer's poor use outside of the back half for Bayern, City's press wasn't amazing, but they were just able to capitalise on Bayern's mistakes and get quality looks. But Bayern's back six really held tough and was the difference. It was forced Bayern to put in crowded crosses and really only really had decent shots from distance, leading to lower quality chances, which reflected the game's expected goals rating. As you can see, City had a 2.02 expected goals and Bayern only had a 0.87, despite winning the possession battle, which is quite difficult to do against City. But as you can see, City had a lot more shots from inside the box, a lot more dangerous attacks. They're able to move the ball forward a lot better, turn the ball over due to Bayern's mistakes in City's front half. And Bayern really had limited shots from inside the box. A lot of these were just not even half chances, they were sort of deflections as well. So they weren't really quality looks. But overall, I'd love to watch the second leg. I think at Allianz Arena in Bayern, there could be a very different story. I don't think Bayern played too poorly. I think it was just a few mistakes that really let them down, and City capitalised big time on them. I think if they can clean that up and they can find a way to break this six-man defence, Bayern could easily push this tie right to the 90th minute at home against City. Thank you everyone for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please do like, and if you're interested in more content, please do subscribe. These do take a fair while to make, so any support would be greatly appreciated. But thank you very much for watching. Have a great day.